So officially, we know nothing about the Nintendo Switch 2 or Nintendo's next-gen system, but what if I told you that Nintendo might have mistakenly revealed a detail about the next-generation Switch? Now it's possible what I'm about to talk about could just be a coincidence or completely unintentional, but I still feel like it warrants a discussion because it has happened a few times, and I feel like it would actually be an amazing idea for Nintendo to do if they actually decide to go through with this. And so I'm going to explain everything first and show you the examples, and then at the end of the video we can talk about what this would be like for the Switch 2 and why it would be such a good idea. Alright, so the first thing is with Super Mario RPG, as if you take a look at the game when it first came out on the SNES back in Japan, you have different icons for the A, B, X, and Y buttons, and all of these correspond to a different color in the Japanese version of the game. If you compare that to the North American version of the game, you're going to see that the A, B, X, and Y buttons actually have two shades of purple instead. And the reason for this is because the SNES system was actually differently designed if you had the Japanese version of it or if you had the North American version of it, where you can see right here that they both have different designs on the outside, and even the controllers themselves, the one in Japan has like these 4 different colors on it, and the one in North America just has the 2 shades of purple. Now, as you guys know, Super Mario RPG is getting a remake on the Nintendo Switch, and if we take a look at the Japanese version of the remake, the A, B, X, and Y buttons are once again colored like how they were in the original SNES game. But if we take a look at the English version of the game, we can also see that for the A button, it shows it in red again, like if it was having the 4 different colors, which implies that the North American version of the game is also going to have these 4 colors. And so of course when you see this you might be like, well Aero, what's the big deal? They're probably just having them all be consistent now because it's getting a worldwide release and the Japanese version was the original version of the game. And if that was the only thing, I would agree with you, but take a look at this next thing with Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, which is also getting a remake on the Nintendo Switch. Throughout the trailer for this game, they've actually shown us a couple of the UI elements, and we can see here that for the buttons, they actually had the A button being red, the B button being yellow, and the Y button being green. They don't show us the X button anywhere inside of the trailer, but if I had to take a guess, I'm sure it's gonna be blue. And so this one is very interesting because the original GameCube version of this game also had colored buttons with its UI, but they matched the GameCube controller's buttons, which were also very unique because the A button was green, the B button was red, and it had different colors, but we can see now for the remake, they've changed the A button to be red and the B button to be yellow, and it seems like they're really matching the SNES colors. And here's a big one, apparently people on Reddit who have data mined through Super Mario Bros. Wonder have discovered UI for different colored buttons that are inside of the game, and they're once again matching the SNES colors with the red button being A, the yellow button being B, the green button being Y, and the X button being blue, but it also has different colored ones that are the opposite versions for the D-pad buttons as well. And so now we have 3 examples of these SNES colored buttons appearing in games that are releasing towards the end of the Nintendo Switch's life. And so this could all just be a coincidence, but some people are also speculating that Nintendo could be future-proofing these games because the next generation Switch that's going to come out is actually going to have colored buttons for the A, B, X, and Y, and maybe even colored buttons for the D-pad. And so assuming that the next system is also going to have backwards compatibility, maybe if you put in these games, the system is able to read right away that they're playing this on a Switch 2, or maybe there's going to be a patch for something like Super Mario Bros. Wonder that's going to make these colored buttons available for that game if you're playing it on a Switch 2, but basically Nintendo is getting ready for all of these games that are coming out now to start taking advantage of these colored buttons when it comes to their UI. And really just looking at all of this and thinking about it, the idea came to me that if Nintendo actually decides to put these colored buttons for their next system, and then they call it the Super Nintendo Switch, that's actually kind of genius, and I feel like that would be such an easy way to get the point across that this is a next generation system. The name even sounds really good. I think a lot of people would actually like it if it was called the Super Nintendo Switch. It honestly would be amazing. And I don't know about you guys, but personally, I think that having these colored buttons makes the controller look very aesthetically pleasing as well. This was actually one of the things that I was a little bit disappointed with when it came to the PS5 controller, because for the longest time PlayStation has always had its buttons have different colors on it, like how the X button is a blue color, the circle is always red, the triangle is always green, and then the square is always this pink color. But on the PS5 controller, they actually got rid of having these colors for these different icons, and they're all just like this gray color that appears on the controller, which I actually don't like this really simplistic looking kind of style that they have for it. I feel like if they still had the colors for the different icons, it would have looked really nice, and especially because of how the PS5 controller has like these see-through buttons, I think if the buttons lit up to have these different colors too, that would have looked even better. But really the biggest reason why this would be such a genius idea for Nintendo to do with their next generation system is because this would make it very easy to differentiate between a next gen Switch and a current gen Switch that people have right now. There have been over 100 million Nintendo Switches that have been sold around the world, and you can pretty much go to any public place now and have a decent chance at finding somebody playing their Nintendo Switch, whether it's at like an airport or a coffee shop, especially when I was in college and on campus, and if people had like an hour or two to kill between classes, they would always be sitting on like a couch or in a lounge or somewhere playing their Nintendo Switch. And now, if Nintendo is planning to release a next generation Switch out there into the world, you want to have a good way of being able to differentiate between what's an old Switch and what's a new Switch, because the last thing that you want is for this new Switch to also just blend in with the other 100 million Switches that are out there, and it doesn't really look that different from the outside, and people can't really tell that you're playing on next gen hardware. Apple is actually one of the worst at doing this, because if I told you guys right now, this is an iPhone 12, this is an iPhone 13, and this is an iPhone 14, would you really have been able to tell the difference between which phone is which from the outside? They all look exactly the same. It's very hard to tell because they all blend in so well. It's really only if you have like the iPhone 14, I guess, then if you have like that little black like dynamic island thing on the top of the screen, you might be able to tell the difference that way. But from the outside, they pretty much look exactly the same. If a new piece of hardware has an easy way to differentiate between it and its predecessor, it's going to naturally create a lot of discussion, as people are going to be curious about it by noticing the changes, and having the different colored buttons would actually be a very easy way to do that. And so if Nintendo releases these types of Nintendo Switches into the world, it's going to create a lot of discussion, because so many people are going to be seen in public playing with these colored buttons, and then people are going to be like, wait a minute, what kind of Nintendo Switch do you have there? How come you have those colored buttons? Why does yours look like that? And it's going to naturally create these discussions, because then people will be like, oh, actually, I'm playing the new Nintendo Switch. This is the Super Nintendo Switch. It's their next gen system. It's more powerful. It can do all of this. And it's going to get those people excited now for that system. And then maybe those people are going to be more inclined to buy it. So it's actually a very easy way to market the system, have it look different from all of the other Switches that are out there, and I actually think it would be a great idea. And maybe some of you guys remembered, but Nintendo actually did this with the 3DS. The original 3DS that came out and even the XL all had the same colored buttons, but when Nintendo released the revision, being the new Nintendo 3DS, that system actually had the colored buttons, which are like the SNES again, and it was an easy way to differentiate between the new Nintendo 3DS and people who had the old one. Now this last thing is a little small, but I feel like it would still be very useful if the next Nintendo Switch also has colored buttons. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had this experience, but sometimes when I play the games in split Joy-Con mode, where like I give a friend another Joy-Con, if they get the one with the letters, the thing about it is when you turn the Joy-Con sideways, the letters actually switch placements for what they become, and it gets a little bit confusing to kind of explain to somebody. Like if you're playing Mario Kart with your Joy-Con like this, the button to accelerate becomes this button, but in the game it'll still say the A button, but if you tell somebody to press the A button, it actually ends up making them reverse instead because the Joy-Con is sideways. So it's a little difficult to kind of explain that, which is why if they were actually colored, it would be very easy, because then it would still match the same way. So you could just say like press the red button to accelerate and the yellow button to go back. I feel like it would be very easy. And I don't know, the more I think about it, the more it kind of just makes sense to me. We've had so many different colored Joy-Cons that have come out, and so many special editions of Joy-Cons too, with like Zelda ones and Splatoon ones and Pokemon ones, all throughout the Nintendo Switch's entire life, but every single one of these Joy-Cons has always had these black buttons. And so really just having their next generation system now have these colored buttons, it would just make a lot of sense and be a really easy way to tell that these are being made for their next gen system. And so yeah, I'm a huge advocate for having these colored buttons. I'm actually going to be very happy if they decide to do this, and especially if they call this the Super Nintendo Switch. I feel like it would just make a lot of sense, but I don't know, I feel like with everything that's kind of happening right now, maybe this could really be something that they're planning for the next system. But regardless, I don't care what they decide to do. I'm sure it's going to be a great system, but I feel like this would be such a missed opportunity now if they don't have these colored buttons. So I'm really hoping for it. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button, and also be sure to subscribe, as I'm going to have more videos talking about Nintendo's next gen system as well. Comment down below, let me know what you guys think about this. How do you guys feel about this speculation and these theories? Do you guys think that we're just kind of reaching a little bit and this is just a coincidence? Or do you guys kind of believe that the next system might actually have these colored buttons? What do you guys think about all of this? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. Go follow me on Twitter at @Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.